When a luxury yacht's moment ends, it doesn't vanish, it lingers out of sight. The problem is not the engines, the teak or the paint. It is the fiberglass, indestructible when new and nearly impossible to get rid of, and taxpayers often help pay the final bill. Today we will follow one yacht from dream purchase to disposal and show why thousands of fiberglass boats end up abandoned, landfilled or, yes, turned into cement. Most people assume rich owners just sell the boat or a scrapyard handles it. With fiberglass, there is no easy meltdown. Old hulls can sit for decades, sometimes forever, in landfills or underwater. Between 2011 and 2015, 1.5 million boats in the US reached end of life. In Florida alone, there are roughly 1,500 derelict boats. Removing just 275 of them cost $3.5 million. Total cleanup was over $20 million. To put that in perspective, $3.5 million is the kind of number that buys a whole neighbourhood of normal problems, and here it just buys the privilege of making 275 boats stop being someone else's emergency. Disposal fees run $95 to $100 per tonne plus transport. If it is sunk, add thousands more to raise it. You are not paying to throw something away, you are paying to undo the fact that it exists. We are breaking this into 5 chapters: the dream, the decline, the fiberglass problem where boats actually go, and the bill, plus the one surprising solution, how old boats become cement. The dream, a fashionable asset, picture it, the broker calls, the new model just hit the water. Sleek lines, new tech, hull white as fresh snow, you are standing on the dock, champagne in hand, your guests already taking photos. It is a status symbol. A floating mansion. The culmination of years of work. So you sign. Operating costs, you will handle them. Refit every few years. Sure, these are small prices to pay for this kind of luxury. Then the offers stop and the invoices do not. The decline. From asset to liability, fast forward 10 years. The bright work is dull. Corrosion creeps across fittings, the teak is faded, the interior design that once screamed cutting edge now whispers dated. Insurance companies start asking harder questions. Surveyors note cracks, soft spots and aging engines. The cost of a repower alone could buy a decent house, and somehow it still does not make the boat feel new again. You list it for sale. Silence. You drop the price. Still nothing. Therefore you're stuck with moorage fees, insurance and a boat that no one wants to buy. But why is the hull the deal breaker? The fiberglass problem. Fiberglass was a revolution. It is light, strong and cheap to mould. Boats that once took craftsmen months to build in wood could now roll off assembly lines, but fiberglass boats use thermoset resins. You cannot just melt and remold them like plastic bottles. Once cured, they are locked, essentially forever. In the US, landfill economics often beat recycling. It is cheaper and closer. Rhode Island has about 23 years of landfill capacity left. After that, they will have to ship waste out of state. So, what are the options? Incineration burns the resin for heat, but fiberglass only contains 25 to 30% organic material. Heat yield is low, ash content is high. That ash ends up in the landfill anyway. You do the dramatic thing, set it on fire, and still end with a landfill, just with extra steps. Pyrolysis heats material in an inert atmosphere to recover oil. It works, but it is capital intensive and can damage the fibres. Chemical recycling separates resin from glass using solvents. The fibres keep their strength, but the process needs hazardous chemicals and expensive equipment. Norway has developed a process that recovers 80% of the material, but scaling it is tough. Mechanical grinding works. Machines like those from EcoWolf can grind 800 to 1,800 pounds of fiberglass per hour. The ground material can replace up to 35% of virgin fiberglass in new products such as fence posts, boardwalk planks and manhole covers. Here is the catch. The market for recycled fiberglass is small and fragmented, and the price tag delivers the punchline. A Texas salvager named Pat Zager dumped over 1,100 tons of hull material into a landfill. It cost him $40,000. He could have bought a $100,000 grinder, but the resale value of recycled fiberglass was too low. Landfilling at $35 a ton was the better financial option. That is the kind of math that makes you blink, spending $40,000 to throw away 1,100 tons. Because the solution that sounds responsible costs $100,000 and does not pay back. Fiberglass can effectively sit forever in landfills or underwater. But there is a twist. Some boats rise again inside a cement bag, where boats actually go and the cement kiln solution. Here is what usually happens when a boat reaches the end of its life. First, stripping. Metals, wiring and engines have established markets. Salvagers pull them, sell them and move on. The hull remains, which is like removing the valuables from a house, and discovering the house itself is the hardest thing to get rid of. Second, landfilling. Typical quotes range from $325 for a small dinghy to $2,400 for a 52-foot yacht. Transport makes up about 30% of the cost in Europe. In the US, it is similar. You do not just pay for disposal, you pay for the privilege of moving your problem to someone else's zip code. Third, abandonment. If you cannot afford the disposal fee, chicky. The cheapest option is to abandon it at the back of a marina or along a canal. Florida's derelict boats are the poster child for this problem. Removing them costs millions, funded by taxpayers. The scale is wild. Private ownership creates public cleanup bills. There is another path. Rhode Island's fiberglass vessel recycling project sent 15 boats, 20 tons, to Geocycle in South Carolina. Here is how it works. The resin burns as fuel, reducing fossil fuel use at the cement plant. The ground fiberglass mimics raw materials in cement like sand, aluminum, and calcium carbonate. According to the European Composites Industry Association, the cement produced is just as high quality as the standard product. It is promising. Scaling is the hurdle and the price tag is the reality check. The economics do not quite line up yet. The process requires coordination between boatyards, waste managers, and cement plants. The boats need to be pre-crushed, ground, and transported. Dennis Nixon from Rhode Island Sea Grant is optimistic, but he is clear that making it financially sustainable is the challenge. So when the owner cannot pay, who does? Who actually pays? Owners pay disposal, transport, and salvage if they can. Florida's at-risk program warns owners early. If a boat shows signs of becoming derelict, officers leave a notice. Owners can correct the issues or face criminal charges and have their registration revoked. Monroe County is testing a pilot program. Owners can turn boats into the county for disposal at no cost. The county pays to prevent bigger, more expensive removals later. In Europe, France has operated 52 disposal points since 2009, handling about 4,000 boats. The Netherlands dismantles a boat every day, on average. Disposal prices range from $325 to $2,400, but only about 10% of owners accept scrapping quotes. Cost is the deterrent. So without policy nudges or prepaid disposal fees, taxpayers often cover abandoned boats. Some propose solutions: prepaid disposal fees at sale or transfer, state-level recycling networks modelled on Rhode Island's pilot, and producer responsibility fees built into the original sale price. Fiberglass made boating accessible. Boats that were once the domain of the ultra-wealthy became attainable for the middle class. Marinas filled and the industry boomed, but it made endings expensive. Without markets or policy, old hulls drift to marinas, landfills, or the seafloor. Cement co-processing proves there is a path, if we can fund and scale it. Luxury assets do not disappear, they just change address. If your area has a turn-in or at-risk program, share it below. More people need to know where boats go to die.